forum of the year. I'm just curious how many people this is your first forum ever. That's awesome. Okay. So let me just give you a little bit of a background into our forums and what we do. Every year, September, we get the community together and we ask the community to tell us what things are going on that we need to talk about as a community. We put those topics together, we put them back out and ask the community to vote on them, and then we get a list, and that's where we come up with what topics we talk about each month. This topic, education, sort of has a couple-year history with us. It has come up multiple times, and we've never really had the opportunity to figure out how to present it. And over the last years, I've been more involved in the compact and talking with Jake Everwine. The task force and their work, and I was like, this is great. This is a great way to encapsulate this topic and have this conversation in the community, to let the community know what's going on, the work that's being done. And so that's where we got to today. So this is a little different than our normal forum. We usually meet at the First Baptist Church in North Adams. We usually sit in sort of a circle, and we kind of have this like intimate gathering. We ask everybody to introduce themselves, and I won't make you guys do that today, I promise. It's a little weird, but I do want to introduce the staff of the coalition because they are the ones behind a lot of this work. So I'm just going to kind of go around the room and make sure I get everybody. This is Bert Lamb. She's our communications coordinator at the coalition. At the back table, we have Amanda Chilson, our massive motion coordinator. Miss Golden, our communications business manager. I changed your title. Let's see, who do we got? Tim and Carissa, our Unity staff. We have Chris Griffin, Jasmine Joy, and Stephanie Puck, all from the Family Place. Brett Beatty, our other community health worker. And Glenda Matos Carter, she is our coordinator of the organization. So, without further ado, I want to introduce John Hockridge, who was one of there was a planning committee for this. I did not do this alone. So, Dr. Barbara Malkus, John Hockridge, Jake, I know there's Jake Owine. We all met together, and they were very helpful in getting this going, and MCLA was thoroughly helpful in putting together the food and the space, so thank you so much, and the audio and stuff. Couldn't do this without you guys, so thank you. John is going to do a little bit of an introduction, but I just want to introduce him. He is a member of the North Adams School Committee, chairperson of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, Berkshire County Division of School Committees, that is a mouthful, and chair of the Berkshire County Education Task Force. He is a North Adams native, educated in the North Adams Public Schools. Over the past 16 years, John's work with and on school committees has exposed him to the many challenges faced by our school districts, in part due to the very sharp decline in student enrollments. In 2015, then Senator Ben Downing and the Berkshire legislative delegation approached John to pull together a group of dedicated individuals representing all stakeholders in the education of our local kids.
Amen to that.
Yes, thank you. Thus began the Berkshire County Education Task Force, which began with 20 dedicated members and is currently a group of, I saw on the slide, 30 plus. Volunteer educators, school administrators, school committee chairpersons, municipal administrators, and business leaders representing nearly every school district and municipality, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it, Liz, municipality in the county. So John, if you want to come up and do a little introduction.
So thank you, Amber, and thank you to the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition for inviting us to have a conversation about this tonight. The Berkshire County Education Task Force is now in phase 3, much of which involves communicating with as many people as possible on our findings to date and how we came to our recommendation of a Berkshire county-wide school district. It's clear that many people quickly develop their own perceptions of what we're proposing, and so we know how important it is to get our message out clearly. Before we did this, we wanted to be sure we fully developed our core message. We'll talk this evening briefly about the 3 phases of our work over the past 2.5 years, and we'll go into more detail on phase 2 and the recommendation that came out of that work. Contrary to popular opinion, we were not drinking anything stronger than coffee this type of reorganization that would allow more schools to stay open. Our vision is enhanced educational opportunities for our students and financial sustainability for our school districts. Doing nothing is not an option. So, following our presentation, we do hope to have a conversation with you about the thoughts being shared this evening, get your feedback, and answer any questions that you may have. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Barbara Malkus, Superintendent of Schools in North Adams, and Dr. Cynthia Brown, who is the Vice President of Academic Affairs at NCLA, and both members of the task force, who will provide a presentation of our efforts to date and our recommendation going forward.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to back in for a second. On your table, there are index cards and pens. I'm sure as you're listening to the presentation, questions may come up, so I'm going to encourage you to please write them down. After their presentation, we're going to have a panel conversation. Those questions that are on cards, if you can pull them up, our staff will collect them from you and bring them up, and I'll be able to read them to the panel so that everyone will be able to hear the questions and hear the answers that the panel is going to give. So I just want to note, please write them down when they come up.
Good evening. I'm really thrilled that there's so many people here tonight, and I want to begin by first thanking President Burge for providing us this space, but also being a great community partner to North Adams Public Schools. And Mayor Alcombright is here with us this evening, and I think he deserves a round of applause for all of us. We have many people here in the audience representing various stakeholders, and what I'm most excited about is community students who are here this evening. So thank you for being here. Let's get on. Believe it or not, this presentation has actually been edited and revised to be as painless as possible. So we're going to jump right in and try to move along pretty quickly. So I do serve on the Berkshire County Education Task Force. The next phase of the task force work will focus on implementation, specifically supporting districts that want to explore ways to partner more effectively with nearby districts. We will be touching upon these topics regarding the work of the Berkshire County Education Task Force, what we have learned about our county's educational challenges in Phase 1, what solutions we studied in Phase 2, what we are recommending and why, which will be Phase 3, the task force role moving forward, and then give you an opportunity for your questions and suggestions. Phase 1 of our work confirmed and clarified the fundamental challenge facing public education in Berkshire County. The opportunity for access to a quality education for more and more Berkshire County students is eroding as student enrollment continues to decline, per pupil costs rise, levy limits and tax ceilings are reached, and state and federal aid stagnates. Access to rigorous and enriching courses, activities, and academic and social supports has declined dramatically over the past decade for many students. Here you see 3 downward trends: the declining number of students, the declining opportunities they have access for a full complement of courses, activities, and services, and our community's increasing inability to pay the costs for all the school and municipal services they deserve. I want to note especially the decline in student enrollment, a 22% decline over just 12 years and more to come. Classes entering freshman year in many of our high schools are becoming so small that their chances of experiencing a course of studies that offers anything beyond the core are dwindling. The decline in enrollment is making it harder and harder for our high schools to offer the breadth and depth of offerings our students need. Entering 9th grade classes in 5 of the 12 public high schools in the county are already smaller than 70 students. And with kindergarten enrollment 12% smaller than the 9th grade enrollment, the challenge of making anything but the most basic core courses and services available is only getting more difficult. Yet here you see the upward pressures we documented in our Phase 1 report, marked by the 4 yellow arrows. Per pupil costs are rising, expectations for what students should know and be able to do are rising, just as the needs of our students are rising due to a host of demographic and societal trends. So too, competition for college admission and entry into promising career paths. Phase 1 work research was completed in fall of 2016. Then task force members visited nearly every city and town in Berkshire County to report our findings and gather information and insight to inform our work in Phase 2. The Phase 1 report set the stage for our Phase 2 work. We reached out to the community through a variety of forums last winter and spring in order to develop the goals any potential solution would have to meet. We then identified options for meeting them. We developed and modeled criteria to use in assessing how well each option might meet each of the goals. Then we assessed each option against each criterion. In July, we decided what recommendation to make, and we are beginning outreach now. I am now going to pass the mic over to Dr. Cynthia Brown.
Thank you. So I want to share some highlights of this Phase 2 work, the sort of what we learned or what solutions we studied. So our community conversations helped us to be confident about 3 broad goals that we identified. The first focuses on equitable access and improved access, an opportunity for success in high-quality career pathways, enrichment and elective courses, and co-curricular activities, regardless of where you attend school. Second, that all students will have enhanced safety nets to support their academic and life success, such as guidance counseling, reading services, curriculum for social emotional learning, and special education services. And finally, that taxpayers will have a more equitable and fiscally sustainable way of funding education and other municipal services. So our goals were primarily educational, but we are very aware and looked at the costs and the opportunities of cost in providing high quality and sustainable education and services. Building from those goals, we identified 5 potential options for addressing this challenge. Scenario 1, what if we make no changes? Status quo, same number of districts, the 17 separate districts continue, and the current pace for developing shared services, which is going on to enhance opportunity for the county's 15,000, soon to be 14,000 K-12 students. Scenario 2, a supervisory union approach model for the 3 regions of the county, north, central, and south. A supervisory union, for those of you who may be less familiar with that, is formed when school committees from 2 or more districts agree to share a superintendent and other services. Each district maintains its own school committee, but they create a school committee over all of them for the supervisory union. So you multiply the number of school committees, you have another one. It's in place at North Berkshire, a supervisory union, in the Northwest at the Tri-District, and on the western border for Shaker Mountain. Lee and Terringham schools have a similar arrangement as well. The task force also envisioned that we might seek special legislation to permit some experiments with the supervisory union, make it maybe more effective and efficient, and modify what is currently allowable under law. Scenario 3, establish one countywide regional model in a single supervisory union. So again, sort of that variation of the supervisory union idea. Scenario 4, district with a single school committee for each of the 3 regions, north, central, and south. And scenario 5, a single countywide school district one school committee, one set of supervisory structures. And these are some illustrations. This entire report is online. It might be helpful for those of you who are interested to sort of look at sort of the mapping and see where things are now if you're not familiar with them. With the help of a consulting group, the district management group, we modeled the likely impacts of each option. We applied 34 criteria, 20 of which encompass the elements and conditions of high quality education. So for example, we looked at our first two big goals, improving access to career pathways, enrichment, and elective courses, and co-curricular activities. We identified 11 dimensions for that goal. And here you can see one of the 11, dimension 1J. More student and teacher access, 1J, sorry. More student teacher access to effective technology tools and distance learning through a shared technology platform and support. We used color coding because we thought that was easy. It's maybe not as visible what the categories are, but as you might imagine, red is little or no impact, yellow is some impact or some movement in the direction of better quality, and green is the most impact, depending on the type of organization that one chooses. So, scenario 1 produces little change. Scenario 2, which is the regional modified supervisory unit solution, offers a little more opportunity for change in a positive direction. 3 is likely to provide a moderate likelihood, but it's slightly better than 2 in the same scenario. And then 4 and 5 were more likely than the other 3 scenarios to meet the technology dimension. So they're both green ratings. Even though the 3-region scenario we thought had less potential than the 1-region scenario at the end of the day. Here's another one, student safety, equitable and access to, not student safety, equitable, improved and more equitable access to an opportunity for success in high-quality career pathways, etc. And this is the enhanced safety net one. Sorry, it's a slide behind. So this has to do with shared highly specialized staff to provide more effective student supports, such as ESL teachers, behavior interventionists, autism specialists. Again, all this is online, the online version of the report. We also examined financial impacts, and Barb, do we have this as a handout? Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to model is how much money could be freed up through various scenarios, economies of scale, new efficiencies to be realized in the various scenarios that we had projected. The money could be saved directly or reinvested to make some other parts of these plans possible. So their analysis led them to conclude, and we adopted their conclusion, that opportunities for reinvestment due to economies of scale and efficiencies, and particularly transportation, range from a low of $6 million to a high of $8 million. Managing cohort and class size to match the state average of 19.1 per classroom could yield between 12 and 15 million for reinvestment. Managing future declining enrollments that have been projected by reducing positions most closely correlated with enrollment decline, largely through attrition over the 10 years that we've said that we think we would need to get to a single district, could result in reinvestment opportunities of 9 to 12 million. So you will see that some of the economies of scale in the central office are less compelling than attrition and sort of class size attention, using this opportunity to look at class sizes and other factors. And I'm going to turn that over to Barb.
And the full Phase 2 report is available on the task force website, which is listed on this slide. And I would suggest that if you specific questions about the content of the report that you go and actually take a look at and read the full report, so that you can fully understand what was considered red and why. What would be yellow, meaning it would be an improvement, but it would not give us the same level of savings for reinvestment that we would see in the green, which was either the 3 regional, and in most cases, the 1 regional district. So now, I am going to talk about the Berkshire County Education Task Force recommendation and why they came to that recommendation. When we finished rating each scenario against the educational and financial goals, we did something else. We assessed how easy or hard it would likely be to implement and actually operate each scenario. Then we assessed the likely impact of each scenario, the vertical axis, against our conclusions of how hard it would be to actually implement and operate the scenario. So, since I'm married to a math teacher, this really spoke to me. You can see along the horizontal axis, we were looking from ease of implementation, from hard to easy, and then along the vertical axis, the level of impact. So in this lower quadrant here, it would be hard to do, but it would have very low impact. Whereas if it had high impact, we did identify that that's going to be much harder to do. Here's how the scenarios stacked up against each other. As you can see, option number 1, doing nothing, is the easiest to do, but it has virtually no impact on the educational and financial challenges we set out to solve. Option 5, the single county-wide district, has the most impact, achieves the most for our students, but it is the hardest to do. Drawing on all we had learned through phase 1 and 2, the task force in July concluded that a single Berkshire County school district offers the best opportunity to provide the best education for the most students at a sustainable cost. We see moving to a county-wide district over 10 years not as a governance solution, but as an educational solution to the challenge of having an educational system in Berkshire County that is competitive with the best in the Commonwealth and the world. And here are some examples. We imagine every junior and senior in Berkshire County has access to a distance learning economics course for which they both receive high school and college credit that meets during second period across all high schools and is taught by a MCLA or BCC professor. Every student on the autism spectrum in the county and their teacher having access to an autism specialist. The autism specialist visits the school at least once each week to provide expert consultation. As a result, the students can be served in their homeroom and school at lower cost and with greater success.
Amen to that.
Every middle and high school student has access to new extracurricular offerings. Offerings are co-led by an industry specialist in rocketry, robotics, and video game programming. The students partner in person and virtually across regions and compete across Berkshire County. Two small K-6 elementary schools with average class sizes across all grades ranging from 8 to 14 students become a pre-K through 2 and 3 through 6 school respectively, each with average class sizes of 14 to 19 students. Families gain access to preschool, and there is funding left over to add other services at these schools or elsewhere in the district where it may be needed more. And our last example, students in 3 small elementary schools, some previously without daily enrichment classes, share a single art, music, physical education, foreign language, and drama teacher, so that students have an enrichment class every day taught by a specialist in that content area, and teachers get planning time. Dr. Brown?
So we'd like to talk now about what task force is going to be up to moving forward. So a single district is a long-term aspiration that we have adopted. And we know this is going to require multiple initial and intermediate steps by interested districts in different parts of the county coming together to achieve this aspiration. They will probably start by forming regional or modified supervisory unions. Some of those discussions are happening now, as I'm sure many of you are aware. Over time, these groups of districts will include other districts that wish to join or that see the advantages and decide that is what they would like to do. Once again, here are the towns that are already joined together in supervisory unions. So Williamstown, Lanesboro, and Mount Greylock districts may decide to go from supervisory union to a regional district. They have been talking about that. And New Ashford may join them. Maybe Hancock would decide to join that region as well. These are some other relationships and partnerships. So Adams Cheshire, Central Berkshire, Farmington River in the southeast part of the county, Southern Berkshire, Berkshire Hills. If we add the districts already joined the supervisory unions, we can see that all but 4 communities in the county already have some kind of formal relationship with at least one neighboring district already. This is without anything else having happened. We used our colors. So we envision that these relationships will deepen and expand. We envision that over time, existing and new combinations of districts could grow and include more districts, as more and more towns and other districts see the gains that can be made by coming together. There are challenges, of course, and the task force, to emphasize, is not a decision-making body, it is advisory in nature. Every district will be able to make its own decision about whether and how to participate in supervisory unions, regionalization, or any other effort. Some districts are going to continue the work they've already begun to partner more effectively in models like shared services. Others will wait and learn, and still others may wish never to participate, and that is their right and their choice. Our analysis of each scenario does not assume that schools have to be closed, nor does it model assuming that students' abilities to attend schools beyond their current district's borders will have to change. In other words, school choice can continue if you wish to choose a school beyond the border of your district. So part of our outreach is to bring this message out to community meetings like this. And as we mentioned, we are going to be asking for a panel to help us with that discussion. Folks who've been participating on the task force and who, along with us, are available to help answer questions and do some guided discussion. But we need people from the community to assist us with that and to hear from you all about this and to make sure that we clarify what we can about this proposal, this aspiration, as we came to it. Thank you.
That you have index cards at your table to start to write your questions or comments on and to flag those, and her staff will come around and grab those questions to bring up to the panel. And I would ask that our panel guests start to make their way up to the front. We have Douglas
Jake Everall. I'm a dean here at the college, and I'm also a member of the task force, and I am lead of the Berkshire Compact for Education.
I'm Paul Butler, and I am the chairman of the Berkshire Regional School District and a member of the task force for about 2 years. And I appreciate having you have us tonight.
As Bart said, I'm Doug McCallum. I was the principal of Taconic High School for 17 years. I am on the task force in the Berkshire Compact for Education, and I'm also a selectman in the town of Windsor.
I'm Bob Lamb. I'm the superintendent of the Adams Cheshire Regional School District. Before that, I was the superintendent in Central Berkshire. Before that, I worked at Berkshire Hills. So I've been traveling around the district. I've been about around the county for 30-something years, or 30 years. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Mizuko. I'm the town administrator for the town of Adams and a member of the county task force.
Boy, we got some good ones. You guys ready? Yeah. We'll start with this question. I'm assuming they mean the recommendation. How will it affect vocational schools like the CAN?
One of the aspirations for the task force was that every child in Berkshire County has access to high-quality vocational education. That is not the case presently. The new Taconic will serve Pittsfield. There are some discussions with Central Berkshire about tuition agreements so that the students in Central Berkshire will have access. And of course, most of the students in North County have access to vocational education that we can. There are no formal Chapter 74 vocational programs in South County at all. There are some career preparatory programs on the mountain. The access to vocational education would be facilitated if we were one district. For instance, in the town of Windsor, where I'm selected, we have 3 students in vocational education. One travels to Smith Vocational all the way down in Northampton, 2 go up to McCann. It costs the town of Windsor $9,000 just for transportation to send the one girl down to Smith and $7,500 to send 2 students to McCann, plus $17,500 per student tuition. If we were doing this as a full regional district, we would have regional transportation. It would be much easier for students to have access to education, and every student would have access to vocational education.
So just a quick reminder, I don't know, we have lovely background music, and there are people in the back, so when you guys are talking, make sure you talk, get that mic right up there, unless you want your theater voices. So will cost savings be applied towards classroom instruction or to lower local taxes, or both?
So local taxes never really go down. That might be a shock to you. The goal is not to lower taxes, and the goal is to provide a quality education. And what we're facing in the Commonwealth, especially in communities like Adams and North Adams and Pittsfield, is legal limits on how much we can raise the taxes. So there's a point where the state says you can't raise any more taxes, and then we have no more dollars to fund education. And even if the state removed those caps that we have, because the way Massachusetts is structured, we rely on the property tax, which is very tough for poorer communities. It's very tough for a lot of elderly communities as well. We have a high percentage of elderly folks throughout Berkshire County. So the goal of this is not just to say, let's regionalize and share all the schools in Berkshire County and take $1 off everyone's tax rates. It's to maintain the quality education we have and to improve that quality of education. It's not just about saving tax dollars. We're going to spend those dollars one way or another. We want to spend them effectively so that the dollars we're spending can get us a quality education so we don't fall behind the rest of the Commonwealth. And the Dana School District wants to give money back to the town, I'm all for it, but that's usually doesn't happen.
And also just to build on what Tony had said, I think a really important part is that right now, depending upon the community you live in, that can determine what opportunities you have. So that I'll use an example about, I personally went to Monument Mountain, and back when I went to school there, you could take German, French, Latin, Spanish, and now I'm the superintendent of a district where the only language that's available is Spanish. Yet if you were to just live in a town next to it, there are more opportunities available. And that sort of inequity is something that I think doesn't speak well for our entire county. I mean, we have to give all, I mean, one of the real goals was to make sure that all students in Berkshire County have opportunities, that they need to become the people that they could be, and that contribute to the community in a way.
So this is sort of a related question. The savings that were projected on the slides, are those savings projected per year or total over 10 years?
Really quick answers per year.
Okay. There you go.
I just want to reinforce what they said, which was,
Absolutely.
it's important we understand that our assumption would be that the money saved wouldn't necessarily be pure savings, it would really be reinvestment in improving the opportunity and access and quality of things we're able to offer the students. And I think we have to be very careful about that in saying that we're going to purely save out those numbers together, $36 million. Because I think if we did that, we wouldn't accomplish what the task force has been set up to do, which is to improve the quality of programs countywide.
Thank you, Jim. We know that in economics of scale, oftentimes small rural towns have less voice and access than their suburban counterparts. Have you looked at other similar position areas who have implemented this same or similar model to know if this is a rural appropriate model?
So I think the question here is around governance. And governance, that many of you probably understand governance is your school committee, the folks who elect or represent and work with the superintendent and staff around developing budget, goals and targets and that kind of thing. Governance is a very complicated part of the great organization that we will have to model and study carefully. However, it's very important to us on the task force that whatever solution that we set up, that we maintain a connection between folks who live in a community and the school that their children or the school that's within their line of sight. A way to do this often is to advance the authority and the voice of school councils, which are actually within statute or require that local schools have to help discuss goals and opportunities and aspirations that exist at the school level. So how exactly this governance thing is going to play out as we look at an entire county, I would probably argue that we might have too many school committees right now. People might argue against that, but we certainly want to have a level of voice that allows folks to be part of decision making, but also have more input and influence within the school that is closest to them.
I'd like to emphasize that even more strongly. Again, representing the town of Windsor, we recently closed our elementary school, and I know that we're not as a group advocating that, but the decision in Windsor was we would rather have our kids in a school where there were more kids. We had 5 kids in a grade, and they went through elementary school with 5 kids in a grade, and then they hit middle school in 6th grade and became 5 of 186 kids, and they got blown out of the water. So I guess to be glib, I would say I would rather have a little bit less control of a high-quality school than total control of a low-quality school. And to Jake's point, we still have a school council in the elementary school that our kids go to, and we are very active in it. And as parents and residents, we have input into what happens in that building. So the control, parent control and community control of the school that the kids attend remains in this model because school committees hire a superintendent and set policy.
I think Tony has a...
So just 2 quick things to add to that. The idea of a countywide school system is more common throughout the United States than we think. It's a more normal, if you will, or used school model than we have here in Massachusetts. I always tell people our Constitution in Massachusetts was written before the United States Constitution. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts predates the United States of America. And while that's a great thing, what it's left us with is some legacy systems that were built a long time ago. Mayor Albright always says if you would build a school system today, you wouldn't build it the way it is. So going to a countywide school system is how school systems have developed as you move further west, as states have grown and developed. We're just still somewhat using systems that we developed hundreds of years ago. Adams alone is 2 centuries old, so when you think about it, we're still doing things a lot in Massachusetts the way we did them a couple centuries ago. So a countywide school system is a very normal thing throughout the country.
Thank you. As a resident of Clarksburg currently, 25% of our student body is from school choice, mostly from North Adams. Can the State or Regionalization Commission eliminate the current $5,000 transfer of funds from the town who lost the student? I'm not sure if you guys can answer that, but.
School choice and the funding for school choice is presently an arcane model, and Jake and I and Barb all worked in the Pittsfield school system. It's a little different than a lot of the other school systems because there are 2 high schools, there are 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools. So think of that as a school district, because unlike the others where there's only 1 high school, it's more common. Most school districts in the United States have multiple high schools, many elementary schools. Students in Pittsfield could attend any one of those schools. So no matter where you lived in Pittsfield, you could attend any one of the elementary schools, you could attend any one of the middle schools, you could attend either high school. The plus to it was it didn't screw up your per pupil spending. If you take this town of Lenox, they spend, I think their figure right now is $17,600 per pupil. They get $5,000 per pupil for choice. So each pupil coming on choice, which is 40% of their students, the taxpayers are subsidizing that by $12,000 plus dollars. If you have one district paying the cost of all students attending any school, it is much more equitable for both the students and for the taxpayers.
Thank you. Are charter school students included?
Yes.
This card had several questions, so I'm going to just keep going. Clarksburg also has school union towns in Franklin County. Are they included?
That has not been addressed.
Okay.
Basically, Clarksburg is also looking into a across the state line relationship with Vermont. A single Berkshire district would not preclude either of those, as according to anything I've heard in any conversations.
Just not part of the model.
It's not presently in the model.
So, I was going to say, you just answered the next question, which is interstate school unions being explored? Did you want to say something?
I guess I don't want to say too much, but basically, remember, we're not making decisions as a task force, we're making a recommendation. The individual districts will have those negotiations. So if Clarksburg wants to talk to Franklin County school districts or Vermont school district, they can proceed because they're making the decisions. The task force is making a recommendation that we look at shared services and a county-wide model. That does not preclude anything, but it's not something that would be negotiated because we have no authority to do any negotiations. It's up to the districts.
And if I might add, there's a rural school network that's actually is addressing some of the same questions we're discussing in Franklin County. And we actually have representatives from the school committee who are not in membership in the Berkshire County Task Force, but they are all at every meeting. So we have representatives from school committees and towns who are coming, because this is not just an issue of Berkshire County. It's really an issue of most of the rural Massachusetts counties.
So next question, what negative impacts could a countywide school district have on individual schools? And a second part to that, does the positive impact outweigh the cons?
I can try, sure. I guess the potential negatives would be maybe the perception of loss of control of your local schools. But I think if you look at the potential positive benefits of a countywide district in terms of increasing opportunities for education for all of our students, it'll clearly outweigh any negatives as far as the perceived loss of control. I think at the end of the day, when something's in place, you may find that the one district model will provide probably as good as a representation for your local districts as we probably have now. But the perception sometimes is difficult to get past.
So next question, how will transportation be affected?
You want to jump in, Rob, or anyone can answer that question, so.
I'm not exactly,
Well,
Basically, again, looking at Pittsfield, where Pittsfield owns its own buses and runs its own system, it's much more efficient. Countywide, we had a countywide transportation system. A lot of the little costs that come up, I mentioned the idea that we had a countywide system transporting vocational students as well as all regular ed students or special ed students. There would be efficiencies of scale.
reimbursement.
yeah, I think the key part is that regional school districts, Chapter 71, which is the law that established regional school districts, built them on an idea that regional transportation would be reimbursed at 100%, and that would be impetus for people to choose to become parts of regions. It's never quite worked out that way, and typically we get far lower percentages. But if we were able to have one regional district, towns like there's currently North Adams and Pittsfield, which are not eligible for regional transportation reimbursement, could be able to get that sort of reimbursement. And in fact, if we were to have a county-wide district, some of the other things that were mentioned, the transportation for being able to attend different schools, would become a real possibility, because we could transport students from greater distances. I was raised in New York City, and I lived on one of the backward Staten Island, which was one of the 5 boroughs. But when I went to high school, it was in Brooklyn, or my friends went to school in Manhattan. Basically, we were 2-hour commute together. We had homework done by the time you got to school, or before you got home that night. But I think that those sorts of possibilities, it opens up new possibilities that we can't even conceive of right now. Because at this point, each one of us thinks extremely locally. How do I get the kids in my towns to school in a timely fashion? If we thought about this on a regional basis, tremendous possibilities could open up. That I think actually a number of these questions, I think that we don't even know what possibilities could open up if we had a region. Because it's hard to imagine what sorts of things could open up given the fact that we were all sharing, rather than essentially looking in this very parochial manner.
Thank you. So next question, how will this help students who have special needs?
Sure. With special needs, I think that the benefits certainly would be to have more specialists working in specific schools. Perhaps we could be sharing, I think there was a slide that had an autism specialist, and they could be shared amongst different schools. So we could increase the level of services for all of our special needs students, probably especially in some of the smaller schools. They may not have the funding for resources that they could have otherwise.
This is probably one of the greatest challenges individual districts have to face. How do we provide legally mandated special education for all of our students? And that is a tremendous challenge. We are, all of us, matter of fact, you can speak to all the superintendents, all the districts, we're all competing for the same talent. We're looking for, right now we're looking for special education teachers in each of our districts, and sometimes these things change from year to year. If we were a regional district, we would be able to have a flexible staffing to address the ups and downs or the the needs and, that increase or decrease over time in every school district. We would be able to potentially have magnet programs in a particular, in one school. So for example, one school could focus on autism, another school could focus on behavioral issues, another could focus on just another special education need, and students could attend those schools where they would be getting the best possible services, rather than what we currently have to do, which is basically have to do the best you can. And the best we can is not always what way we'd like to do it. And I think that the other possibility that comes up is that shared services in terms of physical therapy, school psychologists, things of that sort, where right now, like the Adams Cheshire, we don't have a school psychologist. We have a .2 person who comes in. And if we had a school psychologist, as that slide showed, where someone could actually be going across into multiple districts, it would be extremely helpful. And I think that's the real issue of it, that it's hard to conceive of. There are 17 districts in Berkshire County. My son's currently working we have under 16,000 students in the whole county. So my son is teaching in Springfield Public Schools, where there are 26,000 kids. What happens in that is an extremely different situation, where things can be shared across buildings, across schools, which currently, it's difficult to do that when each of us has a very individual, basically we have individual operations. It's very difficult to share personnel. One thing we are trying, actually, North Adams, North Berkshire Union, and Adams Cheshire are involved right now in the development, working with CES, which is the Northampton organization, to have an educational collaborative, because the need is there, and we're trying to figure out how to address the need. That sort of thing would be facilitated, and I think would improve exponentially if we have a good accounting record.
Thank you. So this question actually asked about specialists, so I'm going to skip that because I feel like you guys answered that question. But mode of communication to one superintendent in a district, how would that be handled? So how would it, I'm assuming they mean, I hope I'm getting this right, if there was one superintendent, one district, how would communication work between the schools and the teachers and the specialists and this one administrative entity? I hope that's correct. And parents, let's not, yes, thank you.
So just to give an answer to that, you'd be surprised how much time your average superintendent spends their time doing things like checking bus schedules, managing buildings, and handling all sorts of issues that don't have anything to do with education. If you had a more centralized administrative structure, your superintendents have people who can focus on their specialty areas, and they can focus on the education of the students. I mean, I know Dr. Putnam, and last year we were talking with Jim in North Adams before marketing on how much time they spend on things that have nothing to do with educating kids in the classroom. If we give them the tools, the administrative support they need, one superintendent is going to have people assisting them, so you can have people specializing and focusing in certain areas and providing better quality service to the students. It's not about saying, let's cut a couple superintendent salaries and save a few dollars. That makes no big picture in the big grand scheme of things. It doesn't make a big difference. We're talking about allocating the resources so we can have the same kind of positions that districts in the eastern part of the state have. So it's about using the money we're currently spending a lot more effectively to get a better educational product, and to make sure that our superintendents and our principals and our classroom educators can focus their time on education and not all these other things that other districts have the benefit of having somebody else take care of.
While I'd like to think I'm important, I think that the real issue that comes down is that the real communication that happens between parents and a school is at the principal. And principals by law are in charge of their buildings. I personally cannot hire someone a teacher. It's the principal by law hires a teacher. I can say no, but it's the principal is the interface with the community, and then of course the teachers are the interface with the community. And I think I completely agree with Tony's idea. The nature of superintendencies of small districts, like Adams Cheshire, is that you become a utility person. So today I was worried about ordering 12 radios because the fire department had flunked us because our radios weren't working on a surprise visit. Meanwhile, talking with Tony about roofing and things of that sort. I know nothing about this stuff, but someone has to do it. And when you're in a small district, as Tony said, I have no facilities manager, I have no technology manager. If we had a region-wide district, as Tony was saying, there would be people who could be assigned to these jobs. And the more important work, which actually today I had a wonderful time, is MCAS is coming up. I was doing what I love to do, which is analyze student performances. And I always find I have so precious little time to think about that and talk to the principals about, well, what are we going to do with this information? Because I'm spending on facilities and maintenance and things of that sort. So I think that the idea is that it would change the relationship somewhat. But it's only because we got used to very small districts where essentially if someone dislikes a decision that the principal made, they call you. Your superintendent gets called immediately. Or the school committee members get called immediately. But I think that a region-wide district would give us, would actually make much better use of the personnel of the superintendent to be able to work to improve student learning. Which may have that be the key focus.
Can I make a quick point? So just to follow up, not to beat this topic to death, but we probably shouldn't assume that there's just going to be a single superintendent, even in a single countywide district. So if you look at another state that has a parallel system, Maryland, which is about the same size as Massachusetts, close. They have 24 total school districts in their entire state. Comparatively, we're around 260 in Massachusetts. We have, depending on how you slice it, 18 in just Berkshire County, so 18 to 24. In Maryland, what they do is they have a CEO, a superintendent, but then they do sub-district assistants or deputies that help to be point of contacts in those sub-regions. We're not that far along in the planning to know exactly how this is going to roll out, this sort of sub-regional central office placement, so that there is a point of contact there. But I just want to make that point. Secondly, every district in Berkshire County, there's this big superintendent's checklist, which is all these compliance things like for reports, mandatory training. Every superintendent in central office is repeating that. So we do it 18 different times in the entire county. We can more efficiently do that fewer times, which would actually save labor in some ways. So I think there is value to both efficiency, which then is, everyone has pointed out, Rob and Tony, it does free up time for a superintendent to spend more time. Thank you.
So what percentage of courses do you anticipate being distance education or online, if any? Throw out a number.
I'm not going for a percentage. Well, I am going to observe that online education is fast becoming the norm, basically in industry and in education everywhere. Some of the things that we've been discussing is the possibility of having blended learning opportunities throughout the county. This would require something that where, for example, we would synchronize our high school schedules so that there would be a first period, second period, third period that would happen across throughout the county. That way, there could be opportunities for, say, an exemplary Latin teacher in Linux or Central Berkshire, who would be able to then, second period, doesn't matter what town you live in or what school you're going to, second period you're taking Latin with Charlotte Bradshaw. Or, for example, if there was an exemplary mathematics teacher someplace, that calculus or something, or French 5 or some sort of advanced placement course, that there would be the opportunity to have students in the classroom log on and then take a course with this excellent teacher, and maybe sometimes they actually be able to travel to visit them. So that's a view of how we're thinking about online learning, where it's not just we're farming this out to some other place, but we are actually taking advantage and spreading expertise throughout the region from identified quality centers. And there's other things there are other collaboratives in the Commonwealth right now that have set up online courses for regions. I think there's one in Cape and another one in central Massachusetts. But again, it's opportunities that we can accomplish to give students the kind of course catalog that other parts of the country have. One of the things that we saw during this was someone had shown a course catalog from over in New York State. And it was a high school course catalog that looked like a college course catalog. And that's the sort of thing we should be able to have, but because of our very small population, we can't offer that. Online and blended learning opportunities would be able to give students, again, I'm not going to put a percentage on it.
I'd just like to add, we all know that technology is changing fast. When I got to Taconic, there was no such thing as the internet. Okay? So, yeah, you talk about parent communication, it was, you wrote them a note and put it in the kid's backpack. What having a county-wide district would enable us to do is have a county-wide technology plan that would connect every school to every other school. Skype and other technologies are going to be transforming education. There's what they call flipped learning, where students work collaboratively in the class and they listen to the lecture at home for homework. There are so many things that are going to change in the next decade in how kids learn. For us to be able to access that and not be a decade behind, we need to move towards a county-wide district that has county-wide. Most of the technology specialists in most of the districts are a teacher who's pretty good with computers, right? In large districts, they have technology specialists, and that's their thing. They can design the ways kids could learn using these tools best.
So I'm just going to ask this next question because I think we're kind of getting there a little bit too, but would this recommendation enhance and enrich programming and partnerships with MCLA and BCC, and how? So I think you guys have been talking about that a little bit. Anything else you want to say? Jake?
So you're asking a question about what would this present as opportunities for?
Enhancing and enriching programming and partnerships with MCLA and BCC.
Sure. So one of the things that we're growing right now is the ability for students in the high school to actually take college courses and earn college credit before they graduate from high school. It's what's referred to as dual enrollment. We've almost tripled our numbers in the last couple of years. But there's still successes in pockets around the region. And I think that developing a countywide system would equip us to do more universal dual enrollment, so that students, I mean, I keep thinking about this single district as also a way to grow our region, to brand our region, because all of this, the pressures that are being created are connected to demographic outmigration of people right in the county, not having as many folks who are living here, and trying to build an educational system that actually draws people in and businesses in to set up camp here. But this idea that students can exit from high school with college credits in their back pocket, potentially having even a semester of college already done for free, actually accelerates their ability to access college and also pay for it in a timely way. So I think both MCA and BCC and Williams and Simons Rock are committed to this work as we go forward.
I'd just like to add, I was talking to the president of BCC, Ellen Kennedy, and we were reflecting on when you drive into Berkshire County, there's a little sign on the road. It says, Berkshire County, America's premier cultural resort. And we said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a sign saying, Berkshire County, Massachusetts' premier regional school district.
Amen.
Hey, you got applause, that's pretty good. So this question is kind of interesting going on the economic development. So this individual, the largest growth group of new workers seems to be native Spanish speakers. Do you think Spanish classes for high school students is important to the area's economic development? You want to tackle that? I heard C.
Well, certainly, certainly foreign languages, I think, important to all schools. And I think just in terms of just a little history, I remember going to school here where we had several languages, including Latin, French, Polish, German, and there was just, whatever the students wanted, it seemed like we could get. and now we're lucky if we can offer Spanish. Certainly to offer foreign language, as we see, we have a higher percentage of immigrant population coming into the county and the state and the country. So yeah, I think it is important. I think the economic opportunities that are provided by having multiple languages is only going to benefit the county. And so the increased educational opportunities that we can provide with a single county district may actually enhance any of those opportunities.
Just speaking purely as an employer of people, the more languages you speak, the more employable you are, the more job opportunities there are. So the more we can educate our kids and send them out of Berkshire County with 1 or 2 or 3 language specialties, that's just going to increase their employability in the world. And anyone coming here is going to say, gee, you can come to Berkshire County and learn umpteen more languages than you're getting somewhere else. And the challenge we have with small districts, as everyone has said, is you may have 6 kids in the senior class at Adams Cheshire that want to learn Latin. Well, it's not enough to put a teacher in to have those 6 kids, but they can tie in with the 8 kids from North Adams and 5 kids from Tyringham or wherever it happens to be, and now you can offer that program, and our educational offerings become better. It helps those students as they get into college, and then when they go from college into the workplace, we're truly preparing our students to go to just have a better advantage when they get out of school here, or to attract people who want to come here because we have a better quality education.
And I can just add on to that. I mean, there are opportunities. I work in a place that we deal globally. We deal with people who are companies from Mexico, and we also deal with some from France. So those 2 languages, of those 2 languages, we offer only 1 in our high school right now. And again, the more opportunities and more languages that people are familiar with, the more chances they're going to have to compete economically in the workforce. And probably the better chance we have of attracting new employers and new economic opportunities throughout the county.
Thank you. So we'll take a little detour and go into another area. How much have various union contracts been considered throughout the suggested model?
The MTA has had representation at every one of our meetings, and they're on board. One of the things that we have to remember, and I've reminded the task force of this, change is a process, it's not an event. And the recommendation that we're talking about playing out over a decade, the estimation, I've been doing some reading on this, and the estimation...
All right, we're back. Thank you. I have another question.
Is the coalition working with the MSBA to see how the Chapter 7 funding is working with the potential for regionalization local to North Berkshire? Are you guys in talks with them as far as what their plans are moving forward? If we do transition over into something like this and maybe consolidate schools and things of that nature?
Jake, you're it.
So we've had a lot of discussion about MSBA, school construction, and also debt that's been accrued that communities still owe based on buildings that they've constructed. We understand that as we develop solutions, there'll be a parallel conversation with the State House about how we address some of those questions. So could we, as we develop this regional model, be pitching to the state that there are particular nuances to our region that we would like them to consider, potentially waive, and create some special rules around? And one of those would be this notion of debt and how we come to grips with that. So it's certainly something we're talking about. I don't know if that completely answered your question. I can kick down the line.
So just to echo what Jake said, the MSBA representatives have been at a few task force meetings, if memory serves. So it's a wider issue that needs to be looked at, but I think the MSBA process also needs to change. But for us to be able to get any change from the state, we need to present them with something real and something unique and something that's actionable. So just us saying we need more money out here, we need more money out here is never going to get it. But if we come to a local plan saying, hey, look, we're doing these things, we're doing big things, we're making big changes, but here's where we need help, it gives them the ability to come out and say, okay, we are going to help Berkshire County. Because otherwise, every other county in the Commonwealth, every other community is going to say, well, we want more money for our schools, or we want our debt to be wiped out, or whatever it ends up happening to be. But if we can present them a plan saying, look, we're going towards this plan of reducing all these districts and doing all this to provide a quality education, then we can at least get the state to listen and say, okay, Berkshire County's actually doing something about it. Now they can step in and help us because our demographics are different. The governor was at a task force meeting, I think, last year, and he said right now the only thing he does have to sell doing something different for Berkshire County is that our student numbers are going like this, as well as our population numbers. But if we have an actual plan and we're working on something, that lets us go to the legislature and say we are doing something different, work with us to make some of the changes we need to the MSBA process, to the debt loads, etc.
All right, one last comment, and then I'm gonna have you guys wrap up.
I just do want to underscore that when we had the governor out, we did talk about the role of the state in mandating some of these changes or not. And he was crystal clear, the state is not going to make the changes that we likely need in our region to solve our problems. We have to create the roadmap and the plan forward. However, they will entertain the proposals in this combination of potentially incentives, or what we refer to as carrots, right, as part of our package. So, but we do want to be clear that if folks are waiting around for the state to come in, swoop in, and make these overarching changes, they will not. That's not the philosophy or really the tradition how we do business here in the Commonwealth.
Just finally, also, after hearing the report and visiting with us, the state gave us $150,000 to do the phase 2 study. So they're very interested. They see what we're doing in Berkshire County. That we is not we, it's we are doing as a county and actually addressing the challenge of declining enrollment in a fragmented, balkanized school system, because they're hoping that we're going to come up with solutions that can be replicated on the Cape and in northern Worcester County and other areas that are having the same problem.
So I'm gonna draw to a close, it's 7:30 and I wanna hold to that. So I just wanna thank the task force members who came, I know you're not everyone, but for you guys for coming, and Dr. Brown and Dr. Malkus for presenting, and John, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all of you who came out to be here. I put up this slide with the link so that people can read the report. I suggest you, if you haven't, it's a great read, right?